what are some famous people that are in bourbon commercials right now?
Mila Kunis is in there.
What else you got?
I've got there's just a lot of others.
Hello, and welcome to Revue de Bourbon, a podcast dealing with all things bourbon. I'm your co-host, Dusty, and along with my co-host, Wayne, we're just a couple of guys who love to talk about bourbon. On today's show, we're featuring the great Virginian John J. Bowman. So, whether you're at home, at work, or just in your car, sit back, relax, kick your feet up, pour yourself a drink, and enjoy the show. Hey now, the Revue de Bourbon train's back in town. Chugga, 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 choo, choo. Yeah. Okay.
Here we are.
Welcome back to Revue de Bourbon, everybody. It's great to be back on the pod waves. I am Dusty Pockets, your co-host today, and we have a fill-in co-host. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Dusty. It's great to be here. I'm just happy to be here with all the bourbon heads out there. I'm going to review some really good bourbons.
What's your name? Frank del Franko?
Frank del Franko, yep.
All right.
And I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
What's your name again?
Frank del Franko.
Yeah, welcome, Frank. We had an emergency fill-in because Wayne got the old stomach bug that's going around town.
It's going around.
Everybody says it's going around right now.
That's what they have been saying.
It hasn't come around this place.
Not yet.
No.
So far.
It's not going to. You know why? Because we're loaded up with bourbon.
That's true.
You know what I told Wayne? I said, go home right now and drink bourbon.
Right. There's no better cure.
I shouldn't be saying this on air, but he told me bourbon doesn't even sound good right now. And I said, yeah, doctor's orders.
Wow, yeah.
You got to do it. Anyway, welcome aboard. Thanks for filling in. And Wayne will be back soon, so get better out there, buddy.
Yeah, we're thinking about you.
All right. Well, this is a interesting episode. We had to switch tactics when Wayne fell ill. We're doing this is like 2/3 a Kentucky bourbon and 1/3 Virginian bourbon.
Yeah, neighbors to the east.
It is John J. Bowman. Have you ever heard of it before?
I've not heard of it until I arrived today on set. It's got a wonderful looking bottle. Had some good results earlier in the taste test, I think.
Have you not seen this bottle? Did you not recognize it when you saw it? Because it is on the shelves pretty regularly.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I think it's because it's on a higher shelf than I usually look for in my bourbons. I haven't looked up that high lately. But it is not recognizable, but very delicious.
So you do that like kneel down move where you walk, like crouch down, and you cruise the aisle that way.
Kind of cruise on the lower rungs of the shelf usually.
Yeah,
it's kind of usually where I'd find my most comfort.
What's your go-to bourbon, by the way?
A go-to in our household is a handle of Old Forester.
Okay.
86 proof, and that is our go-to one. Yeah, it's nothing fancy, it does all right.
Let me ask you this. If you're going to step it up a notch and like kind of someone's coming over, your dad's coming over, or a whiskey friend, what do you pour them? What's your
whiskey
go-to?
friend? Well, it's tough with whiskey friends because whiskey friends have tried them all. But a lot of times we'll just try to pick up something that looks fun that we haven't seen before, or usually we'll just find ourselves maybe like a Basil Hayden's or a Booker's or something nice.
So you don't keep anything stocked.
Not usually. It doesn't last
shelf.
too long. We got a couple single barrels of the Four Roses right now, and we got a.
That's a nice one.
Yeah, we got a Noah's Creek or Noah's Mill.
Oh, of course, yeah.
The house, that's about
Noah's Mill.
Noah's Mill, which we like. We love it so much we say the name all the time and remember it. Yeah,
sure. That's definitely an underestimated or undernoticed at least bourbon. So is Rowan's Creek. All those Willett offerings, which we'll be covering soon. Actually, that's on our short list, if you will.
It's a great lineup.
Yes, it is. So. Nice to know that about you.
Yeah.
Frank del Franko also has a beard. Okay, it's a nice beard. That's why I thought it was worth mentioning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. If you hear any little scratches, that's mostly just little beard rubbings. Nothing to worry about.
Anywho, I'm going to tell you something you probably don't know about this bourbon. This is John J. Bowman Pioneer Spirit. They call it a Virginia Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it actually means that they buy it from Buffalo Trace, twice distilled.
Okay.
And then they distill it one more time on their own in Virginia.
All right.
And then age it in Virginia. So let me pose it to you. What is it?
What is it?
What is it?
It seems like they use pretty much every word you can to describe alcoholic. So they're using bourbon and whiskey to cover all their bases, which I like.
They put straight in there,
Put
too.
straight in there as well. That's always a good word to see. That's right, a bonus word. So what do they?
Take a look at
I
that?
would love to take a look. What do they? When they bring it to Virginia, where does it go? What kind of barrels are they aging it in?
It is traditional oak, brand new oak
So more
barrels.
oak- okay,
yes,
so-
at a number 3 char.
Okay.
And I will mention, it's worth mentioning that the climate is a little more subtle down there.
Right.
You don't have the big temperature swings, which
Right.
is kind of what Kentucky's known for in terms of wood opening up and contracting, and that's kind of what you want.
Absolutely.
Traditionally.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that less of a climate is going to not make a better product. It'll just be different.
Well,
So,
I'm sure lots of Scotch drinkers would pull that argument
Of course,
for you,
of
because
course.
They're definitely experiencing a milder climate.
It's
lot
a
of that
different
aging.
climate, yeah.
Different climate, less temperature fluctuations.
That's
so-
right.
Yeah.
There's probably a different barometric pressure there,
Absolutely.
humidity,
Right.
weird stuff like that. So, not that science is weird. Sorry, I
Not
didn't
like
mean
weird
to say
science.
that.
Yeah. It's a very pro-science podcast.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
We're basically tasting a bourbon that is the number 1 mash bill at Buffalo Trace, which is a lower rye mash bill.
Mm-hmm.
So that is your bourbons. I'll just go down the list, kind of E.H. Taylor, Benchmark, Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare, Old Charter. I think that's all that do that mash bill. So what we're going to do tonight, we did a little blind taste test, Frank del Franko and I, earlier before the show, and we're going to release the results.
That's right.
Of our little blind taste test.
That's right.
here. We blind tasted the John J. Bowman up against Eagle Rare and Old Charter 8.
That's right. 8 year. And we did that because...
We did that because they all share the same mash bill.
That's right.
From Buffalo Trace. This is going to kind of give you an education on how aging changes a bourbon.
Well, and also traveling across state lines.
Aging and location.
That's right.
We're all going to learn something here, aren't we?
Yeah, I hope so.
That's what we're here for.
that's what
This
we're here.
is one of the top educational podcasts for bourbon out there. So
That's what people come for. They come for the intense intellectual discussions and factoids.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep, so we're about to get into the educational part of the show. Frank, why don't you describe to me what the first bourbon you tasted was, and I will tell you what it was.
All right. I'll tell you this. The first bourbon I enjoyed very much. It's the first bourbon I've had in a minute.
Okay.
It's been a minute, so could just
You took
be
a little breaky poo, right?
It could be thirst makes the best sauce, but I did enjoy it. It was smooth. I thought it was a little sweet, a little oaky. Mm-hmm. Pretty good burn on it. It was a nice sweet bourbon. I was into it.
Okay, you like it.
I enjoyed it very much. Yeah, I did.
That was Eagle Rare.
I guessed that correctly. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. I thought that might be the only one I get because that's the one I had any experience with, and I've always enjoyed
Very
Eagle
nice.
Rare, and enjoyed it again tonight. So it's that's one bourbon I do know. It's a
Next.
Okay, next I'll go ahead with
Yes,
B.
let's just go down the line
I
here.
said B was a little spicier than the Eagle Rare, whatever it was, but I wrote not as much going on in that one. I didn't think there was much going on, and I hear this phrase tossed out a lot in a derogatory manner, and people will say it's a one-note bourbon.
Ooh,
And I wrote one-note bourbon,
Very
which I think
nice.
is a very rough insult. So I wasn't a big fan of B.
That is Old Charter.
That's right. That's what I did not guess that one. No, I didn't guess that one at all.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't. And I'll tell you why.
You
I'll
went
tell you why.
against John J.
I went
Bowman?
against John J. Bowman. I don't know John
He's
J.
rolling over in his grave right now.
Mr. Bowman, I'm very sorry, but I'll tell you this. See, a lot of burn on it, and kind of chemically in a way, kind of had a real strong state, and I think that must be the proof of the John J. Bowman. I don't know, but I thought that might have been Old Charter, but I seem to have them confused.
So what are your notes? Did you just say them?
I just did. I just did. I thought it was.
Sorry, I was kind of zoning out.
But it was, yeah. Well, it was a very interesting.
Hopefully the listeners didn't zone out.
It was a very interesting summary. So but I will say this: enjoyed all three. Very nice, very nice.
But about what you thought.
About
almost.
You got
I
got 1 out of 3.
Yeah, not quite.
Yeah, 33%, not quite.
Like
a passing
I said,
grade.
I wasn't listening very well.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry about
Join the
that.
club. Why don't you tell us about yours, and I'll go ahead and not listen to that.
Okay. So the first one I said was simple, light, lemony, felt lower proof. It did have a long finish, which leads me to believe it's the Old Charter.
That one was the Eagle Rare.
Really?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. Lemony. That's interesting. I thought that's
said piney and woody
lemony.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can definitely see that.
But boy, it did have that long finish.
Sure did.
That is probably an Eagle Rare characteristic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Next one was very maple-y and honey-y to the smell. Smooth start. It also had a fine smell to it. Fine as in upper class.
Absolutely.
Upper notch.
Right.
Kind of buttery with a nice quick finish.
Yeah.
I was going to guess the John J. Bowman.
You were right on.
Okay.
Very nice.
So then for Old Charter, I had it smells like butterscotch, weak up front, melts away quickly, and a little bit grassy.
Interesting. Grassy. I can definitely see that. It definitely had a quick burn to it, and not much going on after.
It's in and out. Kind of like, I'm not going to make that joke.
Yeah, like our favorite hamburger.
Okay, so I'd say the John J. Bowman did pretty favorably there.
It did. I'll tell you this. I wonder if it was a little bit of tongue fatigue, but you know what I would like to do is give it another round. What does this retail for?
This retails for about $50. You can find it, give or take. But I will tell you this: this did win Whiskey Magazine's best bourbon, world's best bourbon.
Really?
In 2017.
Interesting.
Which is a pretty big deal.
Yesteryear. That is a big deal.
Yeah.
That is a big deal.
It is a fine whiskey, and it comes from Buffalo Trace. And I've heard people say, well, this is like how they say with Weller. This is basically Pappy. It's the same recipe. Not true. It is the same distillery,
right?
But that distinction should be made,
right? I don't think that a lot of people are trying to ride that train, so you got to be careful of what you hear about it.
This is not that, but it is very good. We're going to now do a proper tasting.
That's right.
Live right here on Revue de Bourbon of the John J. Bowman small batch. John J. Bowman is part of the A. Smith Bowman Distillery. They make, I believe, 3 different whiskeys. This is the main one. They also make a rum, a vodka, and a gin.
Have you tried any of their other offerings?
I have not.
We'll have to keep an eye out. Absolutely.
We'll have to keep an eye out.
Not on this podcast. Doesn't really fit the material.
No, we'll leave it out.
More of a recreational testing.
This is thought to be aged 9 to 10 years.
Okay.
That's not for sure, but those numbers popped up at one point from them.
Right. Well, I'd be curious to how long it's aged in each stage of the game. How long it's aged in Buffalo Trace, and then again.
It's aged the entire time in Virginia.
All right.
It's
So
distilled
it's
twice.
fresh.
It is clear when it leaves Buffalo Trace. Okay. And then they distill it one more time in Virginia and then start aging.
All right.
Once again, this is a low rye recipe. It's the Buffalo Trace number 1. 100 proof. Let's go ahead and do a little nose on this.
Sure.
What we got? Smells nice. It's rich smelling.
Absolutely. Really fills your nose.
More of I tend to think the more rich bourbons are later in the evening kind
You
of
like
drink.
to space them out, kind of like how you have a nice stout in the winter, on a dark night. Yeah, have a richer bourbon at night. Yeah.
On a sunny day, Basil Hayden, 80 proof.
Absolutely.
That's very nice.
Absolutely.
On a wintry night, on the other hand, which like tonight.
Exactly like tonight.
Let's do a little richer bourbon. Let's say a Bullet 10-year.
Sure.
A John J. Bowman small batch.
Absolutely.
What would you...
On a cold night, need something with a higher proof, to kind of keep you going through the cold weather. Maybe a Stag Junior. Maybe...
Let me say that is the same recipe as what we're tasting tonight well. That is also the same mash bill.
I can definitely see some similarities between those two for sure.
Very nice bourbon. Now, at $50, what do you say? Is this a buy or no buy for
I'd keep
you?
around, but I wouldn't be buying it on the reg, I don't think. I think that I think it's really interesting. I definitely think it's something to bring out because, as you were saying, it's widely available, but I don't know how many people have delved into it at that price tag. For $50, I might spend my $50 elsewhere on a normal day, but I don't have anything against this one. I think this is a nice bourbon. What would you say? Do you think it's a buy or a pass?
Well, I think it's a buy, like you said, kind of. Here's a good way to put it. If you want to introduce somebody to something new that is into bourbon,
right,
and wants to start exploring,
right. I wouldn't give this to somebody as a introduction to bourbon.
No,
but definitely as an introduction to something new. I think that this could be a really interesting taste.
Yeah, and it's interesting to talk about too because it has the Virginia, like we've
seen so far in the past couple of minutes, definitely has a lot of interest.
Yep.
Writes itself, really.
I'll tell you what. Why don't you read to folks what
I'd
that
love
says
to.
on the back of the bottle?
Yeah.
We like to do this just to see what's going on, what they want you to think what's going on.
That's right.
And maybe a little bit of history too.
Early pioneer Colonel John J. Bowman first explored Kentucky in 1773. 4 years later, he moved his family to Lincoln County, where they were among the earliest settlers of Kentucky. He later presided over Kentucky's first county court and was also appointed the first military commander and military governor of Kentucky County. He was the great-great-uncle of Abram Smith Bowman, founder of the A. Smith Bowman Distillery. This single-barrel bourbon whiskey commemorates the early pioneer, John J. Bowman. I think it definitely does. It definitely has some of that pioneer spirit.
Tastes like it's seen some tough times.
Seen some tough times and some good times.
Mm-hmm. We're having good times right now.
I would say so.
All right, so A to F. A is awesome, and F is failure. And if it's somewhere in between, you have to say a word that has that letter.
Okay, sure. I'd give this one a B for very good.
I'll go a B too.
Okay.
For bodacious.
That's right. I think that's a good way to put it. It's got a lot of body to it.
Yeah. Bodily. That's another word we could have said.
Could have said bodily or really any other word.
So overall, good review. We'll recommend to that. And well done. Keep doing what you're doing. It's a nice story. And they offer tours, by the way, so you can actually go there. They do distill.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You can go there and check it out, and why not?
Why not? If you're in the area, absolutely.
Don't be snobby about, it's not exactly Kentucky straight bourbon. This is very good. Yeah. That's really all that should matter.
That's right. And you're going to miss out on a lot of good bourbons and whiskeys if you have that kind of attitude.
Mm-hmm. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. This episode of Revue de Bourbon is brought to you by Slick Rick's Taxi Service, the #1 taxi in your area, because it's the only one left. Tired of these pesky rideshare apps that tell you exactly when, who, and what will be picking you up? Yeah, I thought so. Well, Slick Rick's drivers have no restrictions on what vehicle they use. You could literally be picked up in anything. The kids just love it. Also, Slick Rick's drivers are thoroughly vetted through their local probation officer. You'll have the peace of mind of riding with someone with something to lose if they commit a crime while driving. Now that's what I call incentive. Need more? No problem. With Slick Rick's sometime guarantee, he guarantees to probably show up at some time. So, remember, next time you need a ride, choose Slick Rick's Taxi. It's not just Rick, it's Slick. Hey, let's move on to bourbon news. Why don't you toot that bourbon list?
You mind if I give it a toot?
Bourbon news coming down the tracks.
All right.
This just in. Oh, so they're handing me the papers now.
Right. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Samantha. See ya.
Yeah. This just in. Steamboat Whiskey Company's 45th bottle of its Warrior Whiskey batch made an appearance in the White House as a gift to the 45th president, Donald Trump. Wow, this is interesting.
It's very interesting, yeah. I wonder how often these kind of bottles are being gifted to the president. It seems like a pretty sweet gig if you want some free bottles.
No kidding. So the Steamboat Whiskey Company also isn't probably the world's most popular whiskey company.
Not at all, yeah.
Not even top 10, right?
No, probably not even in the conversation.
It's never in anyone's conversation.
Probably getting more of a participation trophy kind of get, yeah.
Steamboat. Sounds like a bunch of hippies to me.
That's what they've. Remember when at Haight-Ashbury when they would drive their steamboats up and down the street?
Yeah, they all migrated to steamboats.
To steamboats, yeah. That's where steampunk came from.
I don't know about this. Let's go on here.
Okay.
It's a blend of Tennessee rye and wheat bourbon, which is then aged for about 3 months in a newly emptied cruisin' rum cask, and then bottled at Navy strength, which I don't know what that means, but at 100 proof. I guess this benefits veterans.
I hope that
the warrior whiskey. Okay.
I hope that they found some benefit for this, because it sounds to me like they had some rye sitting around, a wheated bourbon, and some barrels they didn't know what to do with. So I don't know if there's much good going in the bottle, but hopefully some good comes out of it.
Whenever I see aged in rum, that means you need a little flavor, sugar.
That's right.
There's a lot of sugar there.
Fix the,
kind of
rough taste.
Mend the wound.
Absolutely.
Whether you think Donald Trump is a good president or not, he doesn't drink, so this makes it even more bizarre.
I really think that instead we should be congratulating whatever White House aide was near the room at the time who probably took this bottle home with them. I have a feeling maybe it got passed on to somebody, and maybe they'll enjoy it. All
right, moving right along. Let's talk about some non-traditional whiskeys that are hitting the market.
Right.
What do you say? We did a little research at Revue de Bourbon, and we found a few whiskeys that are non-conventional. By conventional, I mean corn, rye, wheat, barley.
That's right.
So we found one at Koval Distillery.
Okay.
Or Koval. And they're using millet.
Interesting.
Have you ever heard of millet?
I have heard of millet. I have not heard of millet whiskeys, but...
Well, it's an ancient grain and a significant food source in parts of Asia and Africa. But in the United States, it's most likely known for its use in bird food.
I guess if you can't get much to biting on your bird feeder, you can turn it into whiskey and maybe find some use for it.
What's the next one there?
Oh, I tell you, this Corsair quinoa whiskey, quinoa, the new superfood sweeping the nation 6 years ago. Quinoa may have originated in South America, but now it's a trendy, gluten-free health food here in the United States. The grain, and I don't know if you know this, actually a seed, lends this whiskey an earthy, nutty flavor.
See, the seed. That's
right.
That's different.
It sure is.
We also found one, a rice whiskey, Vinn, V-I-N-N. Vinn rice whiskey, located in Oregon, Vinn, Oregon? Oh, it's just located in Oregon. Excuse me. It makes a traditional Chinese rice spirit called baijiu.
Have you had baijiu before?
Well, it's a lot, from what I understand, it's a lot like sake.
Yeah, I wonder if a lot of those rice whiskeys and rice distilled things have similar
Yeah, it's
flavors.
Just much higher proof, kind of like a whiskey. Probably kind of moonshiny tasting,
Yeah, I bet that's kind of their equivalent.
What else did we find there?
Well, I have this one here, a dry fly wheat whiskey. No flies, just wheat. A craft distillery in Washington started by friends who enjoy fly fishing. Dry fly is proudly grained to glass. I like that. And uses 100% local soft white wheat. The wheat lends a softness to the whiskey, and they also have a higher proof cast strength that I prefer.
I'll tell you what, you don't see too many 100% wheats.
Absolutely not.
There was a Bernheim one. I think it's still produced.
Not much demand for this, so maybe we can give this one a swing and see.
We should try it.
We should.
There's also, I found one, it's a Texas distillery. It's made from 100% Hopi blue corn.
Oh.
There are 100% corn whiskeys, mellow corn,
Absolutely.
which we've talked about on Revue de Bourbon.
Yes.
We actually have an entire episode over it. And it's very good.
No false advertising in that name. Very mellow. Very smooth.
Mellow. I'd like to try that.
That seems the most accessible from that list in terms of what we know and love in our palates.
I'm going to taste a little bit more of this Bowman.
Yeah, why don't you give it another shot?
I'll tell you what, let's drop an ice cube in here.
Yeah.
And see what we think after that. Can I be honest for a moment?
Sure.
I think I'm going to like this with ice.
I think so too. This is nice with ice, let me tell you. Big fan.
Really?
Really opened it up for me. It's really cutting out. There's some sweetness to it that might just be me, but I'm not a huge fan of it. This ice is really
What are you tasting?
opening
Give
up
me
here.
some Give me some flavors.
Oaky, a lot more woody tasting.
The barrel definitely comes out. I feel like I'm licking the barrel right now.
Right.
Right after it got poured out.
Right. Not just any.
Not before it was
around.
in there or sitting around. Yeah.
What do you think?
I totally agree with that. It kind of chilled it out, though. I think I prefer it neat.
Yeah.
I'll prefer it neat.
Like the spiciness of the neat, yeah.
Yep. Turns out I like bourbons that are at about 100 proof. That's about, I'll go down to 90. Basil Hayden somehow pulls off the 80 proof.
They do. It's one bourbon that if you weren't told, you might not figure that one out right away. It definitely gets away with its low proof. 100 seems to be the sweet spot. I think more than that, you start to get burned. Takes a little while. It's more of an intense experience. But yeah, right around 100 seems to be not a bad place to be hanging out at.
It is. Okay. Well, this has been Revue de Bourbon. We did a blind taste test with the same mash bill, which we've never done on Revue de Bourbon before.
Groundbreaking.
And we blind tasted the John J. Bowman Eagle Rare and Old Charter 8-year. It's safe to say the Old Charter did not hold up.
It didn't. It was the only one of the three that didn't quite make the cut.
Pretty obvious that is not. I love the label, though. It's yellow.
Really
and
fun
blue.
bottle. Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of has that old school weird label on it.
Yeah.
I'll still drink it occasionally. But the John J. Bowman did great. And we did a little bit of bourbon news. We talked about some unconventional bourbons. And next time we'll be probably diving into some Willet, back in the old Willet files, if you will.
Those are good files to dive into.
We're going to dig around. I'm going to sift through them, and we'd love to have you back. I'll tell you what.
I'd love to be back. Anytime Willet's involved, I would love to.
You did great. I think Wayne would be proud.
I would hope so out there. Hopefully he can unclog his ears and hear some of this.
Frank del Franko, everybody. Yeah. Give yourself a toot on the old RDB whistle there.
Let me just one more time for old time's sake.
There you go. All right.
Thank you.
That is the RDB train leaving the station, so you'll have to come aboard next time. This has been Revue de Bourbon. I'm Dusty Pockets, and my co-host tonight,
Frank del Franko.
And we'll see you next time on the Podwaves. Thanks a lot.
Bubble is still blowing up here.
Thanks for that tip.
Hey, anytime.